Hey, so today we have a different album. I mean, obviously I have one different every day, so I don't even know why I'm saying that. But yeah, today we have Alias and Tarsier. I think that's how you pronounce it. Brookland slash Oaklyn. Essentially, this is an album that how the fuck do I describe it? Like, essentially, it starts very like soft with a few sounds and singing, and giving. It's very funny because the sound quality at the beginning, it's very like crunchy, it's very like low quality, but it actually gives a lot of texture to the song. The first song is very like calming, very like dreamy, and sort of in a way this song actually reminded me a lot of the Chemical Brothers We Are the Night album, which I covered like a few weeks ago or something. And essentially it had like that same registry, the weird sounds, the low quality sounds, the crunchy sounds and everything. Especially the song "The Pills Won't Save You Now" really reminded me, or at least this song really reminded me of that song. I think the first song on this album is "Cub." Yeah, I was more into that, okay, and I was like, okay, sure, I guess that's what we are expecting again, yeah, it has a lot of those, 2000s electronic sounds, it definitely, like, as low quality as they are, they do add to the experience, they do add, like, a certain texture, to the entire experience, so I wouldn't say they're necessarily low quality, they're just, like, I mean, they are low quality, but they are used artistically, I guess. It's not because they don't have better equipment. It's just because I think it's a choice, like a stylistic choice, right? Now, on the second song, the singing actually sort of changes the dynamic somewhat, because in the first song, the singing kind of like fits that EDM singing registry, like, again, the Chemical Brothers. But on the second song, it actually feels like more dynamic, and it feels like it adds a more involved layer to everything that is actually happening, and that it kind of like changes a lot of the vibe that the album has. And that type of singing on the second song especially is sort of like more close to the type of singing that we're gonna have for the rest of the album, right? And something that caught me completely fucking off guard was that there's rapping like midway through the third song, right? So first song, okay, Chemical Brothers. Second song, I'm like, okay, this is more about like actual like singing. There's way more singing involved than in the Chemical Brothers, okay, but it's still like that crunchy, low fucking quality sound, fine. But then in the third song, I'm just okay, same as the second song, and then just rapping midway through the song, and I'm like, it completely changed. By the way, like that shit just completely changed, and it changed the song perspective entirely. And that's what I found really interesting, because it still made it work. Like, the instrumental, like, didn't change. The sound stayed the same. What changed was that someone started rapping instead of the singing, right? Not the same person, by the way, two different people here. It somehow, like, worked, even without changing any of the fucking instrumentals. In a way, it felt like the rapping just actually belonged to the song, right? So that was very interesting. And then to continue with the fucking shock, the fourth song actually opened with an acoustic guitar. Yeah, like this album just sort of like keeps throwing surprises at you, and then the song does add more guitars later on and some even electronic sounds, and honestly it sounded really fucking good. I honestly didn't expect it to like as much as I did, but it was a very welcoming change of pace. I would say like four songs in, I'm like all over the place. I have fucking EDM dreamy vibes, and then I have fucking crunchy, low texture sound, and then we have rapping, and then we have acoustic guitars, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Hello? Like, can anyone fucking explain me what's going on? But yeah, essentially, like the vibe that I got was that this entire album was sort of like an hip-hop hybrid. Like, it felt a lot on that, like, that sort of, it's hip-hop, but also as, like, how to explain this? Like, it has sort of like electronic sounds, I guess. So it's hip-hop, but instead of sampling, you use all electronic sounds, and you use like crunchy sounds specifically to EDM. Specifically to the 2000s. It was very like it's kind of weird in a way, but it's very interesting. And then you have the song. I think it's called Black and Fear, and it started with rapping again. But it was like different rapping. It was very like fast, but it also sounded very high pitched. So it wasn't like the rapping on the third song. It was very in a way, like it reminded me at points the chipmunks, right? Fucking rapping. So that was definitely like very fucking interesting, it's again like the album is completely all over the fucking place. Like the album is very like dreamy, is very ethereal, right? But at the same time, like you have rapping at times, and then other songs have like the other song have an acoustic guitar, and like a lot of the sounds are very like drum machine inspired. Like you have the beats from not necessarily drum and bass, but more like not even breakcore, like basically more toned down than drum and bass, especially more like the drum part, right? So like that's the thing that you would hear a lot in earlier, especially like R&B, I would say, like more on that registry, but with like the EDM type of sound. So yeah, you kind of have like dreamy voice, ethereal voice with R&B style like drum and instrumentals, but they sound electronic. It's very fucking weird. Like it's definitely a very, very weird album, but it was such an interesting experience, honestly. Like I don't think I've ever heard anything like this before. Like it's such a weird mix, and to me it was very interesting. I really fucking love the experience. I honestly don't really kind of know what to make of it, right? I think it was quite nice. Even the rapping, dude. Even the rapping, it was like there's 2 sections of rapping in the entire album, and even those completely caught me off guard. And I was like, what the fuck? Why is this rapping all of a sudden? And they completely changed the dynamic of the songs, but at the same time, it felt like they fit. It feels like this is just a rap album. It feels like the angelic voice and the rapping voice are kind of like interchangeable. They completely change the perspective of the songs, but you can like place one or the other and they both fit. It's like kind of magical in that way, I would say. It feels like the album doesn't have space for both going on at the same time, but at the same time it does feel like the album makes up space for whatever it's happening at the moment. So if it's the angelic voice, it feels that the album only has space for the angelic voice, but then if the rapping comes around, it feels like the album only has space for the rapping, but you can almost like use them interchangeably in the same song, and it feels like they will always have space, right? It's so like weird, bro. It's actually so fucking weird on that regard. And yeah, after doing a little bit of research, I actually ended up finding out that what this is actually called, apparently, according to the internet, I'm not an expert in genres, but according to the internet, this is considered trip hop. So it's like hip hop, but it's trip, which is like based on R&B and soul and jazz and stuff like that. And it also has a lot of electronic influences or whatever, which is like which is why I felt like you have this weird fusion of hip hop type beat with like electronic sounds, because that's kind of what like trip hop kind of is. Kinda, not really, but kind of. Yeah, I found it very interesting for sure. Honestly, it's one of the best fucking experiences I had musically. This is the type of shit that I'm super glad that I'm doing this type of like reviews every day, because this is the type of shit that I'm sort of like searching, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, honestly, if I just kept, listening to the same music I always listen to, I would not fucking experience this. And I am so fucking glad I actually did experience this, Anyway, onto my vibe meter. So my vibe meter right now is telling me like a 7 out of 10, I would say. Like, I mean, okay, technically it's also telling me an 8 out of 10. So it's sort of like jumping between a 7 out of 10 and 8 out of 10. So let's just call it like... I mean, I don't want to call it 7.5 because it feels a bit like garbage, yeah, just half, like, honestly, just take either 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, whatever you want. I'm gonna go with both, this album is both a 7 out of 10 and an 8 out of 10, because, again, it's sort of like the rapping and the angelic voice. If they both can work, I can have 2 scores, alright? But yeah, honestly, I'm gonna recommend this album. I'm not even memeing. I think it's definitely very unique. It's definitely very unique. If you give it the time, if you give it the space, especially if you like very interesting sounds, I think you'll find this album very interesting.